Hey everyone. So last year I took a vacation trip to the US, and given how expensive Macs are in Brazil, I thought it might be a good time to upgrade. The M2 MacBook Pros had just been released in January of 2023, and surely Apple wasn't going to release a new version of them in that same year, right? Then, 4 weeks after getting home, and really 1 week after I actually started using the computer after transferring everything, Apple announces the M3 MacBook Pros. So, what did I buy? Do I regret buying it? Should I have waited? Let's talk about it. My previous machine was a regular M1 Mac Mini with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 of SSD, which is the baseline that we're gonna use to compare with what I bought, which was an 14-inch M2 Pro MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of SSD. There were three main reasons for this upgrade. The first one being that, as I said, Mac prices in Brazil are insane, and it would have cost me the equivalent of a whopping $5,400 US dollars, which is the same price as a comparable M3 Pro MacBook Pro right now. While in the US, it was $24.99 at Apple, but I got it on Amazon for $22.99. The second reason was that I was missing having a portable machine, and the Mac Mini meant being tied to my desk to do anything from programming to editing videos, editing photos, anything work related, which was fine during the pandemic where I was not going anywhere anyways. But now with the possibility of working remotely from anywhere and not just from my home office, it was time to get something that I could take anywhere and do my work with anywhere. The third and last reason was that 512 of SSD was becoming too little space. I was constantly having to clean up and move things to external drives and edit videos from external drives and stuff like that. So it was time to get a little bit more internal space to do this kind of thing. I was surely caught off guard though. As I said, the M2 Pro and Max family of MacBook Pros had been released just 9 months prior, and by the time that I got home and finished work that I was doing on the previous machine and transferred everything and really got into using this new machine, I actually just used it for 1 day before Apple announced the new M3 Pro and M3 Max 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros. But is that a problem though? Like, let's talk about it. What do you really get on the new M3 family of MacBook Pros versus the M2 Pro that I bought? So, right off the bat, buying an M3 Pro instead of the M2 Pro in the same configuration tier would have given me 18 gigs of RAM instead of 16, and a space black color option instead of space gray. However, the RAM in the M3 Pro is a bit slower than the one in the M2 Pro. Meanwhile, regarding the chip, on the CPU side, both have 12 cores, but the M2 Pro has 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, while the M3 Pro has a 6-6 even split. On the GPU side, there's also a small difference where the M2 Pro has 19 cores and the M3 Pro has 18 cores, which are supposedly a bit faster than the ones in the M2 Pro. In terms of performance, in most benchmarks, the M3 Pro is about 17% faster in single core, which is significant. It's about 7% faster in multi-core, which is not that significant. And it scores slightly lower than the M2 Pro, both in OpenCL and Metal benchmarks. What that all means in practice, according to tests being done all over the place, including this one from the MacStack YouTube channel, is that the M3 Pro performs a little bit faster while consuming a little bit less power. Essentially, what you're getting when you buy the M3 Pro is doing your tasks about 10% faster and having about 15% more battery life at the end of the day. So is a small performance boost with a little more battery life something that I would like? Of course, sure. but is it something that is going to make me sell my recently bought M2 Pro and just go upgrade and get a new M3 Pro? Not really. On the other hand, what's the difference between what I bought and what I had before? Let's forget the M3 Pro for a second. Was the upgrade worth it from the plain M1 Mac Mini to this M2 Pro MacBook Pro in terms of performance? Here are the benchmarks. 2353 versus 2644 in single core, 8402 versus 14,240 in multi-core, 20,271 versus 50,482 in OpenCL, and 32,071 versus 81,585 Metal scores. And here are some measurements that I took myself. 2276 versus 6080 in SSD writing speeds, and 3084 versus 5062 in SSD reading speeds. Now, I'm an iOS developer and I make and I edit these videos on these machines. So what does this performance difference mean for me in real world use for my personal use? I built and ran the same Xcode project in both machines. It's a simple UI kit based project, not Swift UI, and also exported the same Final Cut project, which was my previous video before this one. It's a 4K video, 7.5 minutes with a few color grading things and stuff like that. I exported from both machines using the same YouTube 4K settings. And the result is that both things took about half the time to complete compared to the M1 Mac Mini. So was the upgrade worth it? It sure was. And here's something that I really want to drive home with this video. You can't really predict what Apple is going to do with their upgrade cycles. Sometimes they'll leave a product in the lineup for years. Sometimes they update the same product twice in the same year. You can't always wait. In my case, it was the fact that if I were to get anything in Brazil later, it would be insanely more expensive and I wouldn't be able to buy it. In your case, it might be the fact that maybe your computer is on its last legs and you need something new to continue to do your work. Also, I think it's usually more important to compare what you have with what you're buying than to compare a machine that you don't have that is available now with one that is rumored to be released and you're basing yourself on what the rumor specs are going to be. Focus on what the tangible results of an upgrade would mean in your specific case instead of trying to figure out what would be the best thing hypothetically. A new computer might be leaps and bounds better than yours at graphics performance, but if all you do is work on Excel all day, then that upgrade would be just a waste of money since it's not gonna make any difference in your specific use case. So sure, it's good to not be clueless and keep an eye on rumors and not buy anything the day before WWDC or buy an iPhone in early September, days before when they usually have their iPhone event. But in general, if there is no clear sign that something is on the cusp of being released, then you should just weigh the upgrade of whatever is available right now with your personal use case, see if it makes sense, if it's going to benefit you, and then just go for it. Don't try to always time these things perfectly because it's just not possible. But what about you? What is something that maybe you bought and you regretted, or maybe you regretted waiting or not waiting, maybe you regretted not buying it sooner? What are your rules for when to upgrade your gear? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you on the next video.